This is the ultimate rig build for the BlackMagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K/6K for indie filmmakers. First, a few qualifiers. This is more specifically aimed at the more advanced indie filmmakers out there who are making shorts and might have only a few days to get the work done. Certainly, you can make films without all this stuff, but over the years, I've compiled enough experience to figure out what's important on set and what's just going to cause frustration. The number one important thing on set is time management and efficiency. There's so much stuff that happens and needs to happen on set that modifying a camera or waiting for a build shouldn't be one of them. Sometimes you have a very good schedule of what shots need to get done, and you can schedule your builds with enough time to get everything done. And sometimes you just don't. So the importance of a modular camera build is one of the most important things you can do as a DP or camera op. For instance, if the director wants to go from a shoulder mount shot and then do a tripod shot and then a handheld shot from a very tight spot, you don't want to spend 20 to 30 minutes building and rebuilding your camera rig to accommodate. One solution is purchasing multiple cameras, but that can get expensive and complicated. A rig build like this is my solution. So I'm going to explain what components I've got on this build, and more importantly, why I chose to go with some of them. Let's get started. First, I've got the BlackMagic Pocket Cinema 4K, and that's in a small rig full cage. I chose small rig because at the time it was the least expensive, but it also seemed to come with everything I needed. Next qualifier. I've been doing the wrong thing for a long time. I've tried to do it the cheap way or the easy way, and all that really led to was frustration on set, time wasted, and eventually spending more money on the right stuff that I thought would make production days go better. More on that later. On the top of the cage is a Magic Rig rail handle. A rail handle is great because it's very secure and can be mounted and removed quickly. A handle is definitely one of the more important things to have for transporting the camera and moving up to a shoulder or onto a tripod. Also attached to the cage is a small rig SSD holder. This is specifically for the Samsung T5 drives that I use for recording. Next is a small rig cable manager for the USB-C and HDMI cables. You'll notice that I've removed the flappy doors from the camera. If you use this camera, just do that. They're pointless and really only get in the way. Next to that is a rosette style mount. This is for when I want to go very small, and I can attach a focus handle to this, and then on the other side I can attach a small rig wooden handle with a small rig tilt swivel monitor mount on top of that. That way, I can get the rig pretty small while still having focus control and two handles to keep the shake to a minimum. My go-to lens is the Olympus 12 to 40mm f2.8, but I've got a case full of lenses to work with. The Olympus is my favorite because it's very sharp and has a very short minimum focus distance. I can basically do macro shots if necessary, so all the B-roll and extra footage, I can just shoot. On the top of the cage, I've mounted the Tilta Nucleus M wireless focus motor. I've actually got the Nucleus Nano as well, which is a great value in wireless focusing, and I can't recommend it enough. However, I decided to get the M because of the control handle that will work better for my needs. The great thing about Tilta wireless motors and controllers is that everything works with everything. So the puck will control the M motor and the M handle will control the Nano motor. They just can't work together at the same time, and switching between them requires a power cycle. So if I had a focus puller at a monitor, they could focus with the puck, and if I wanted to do it, I would just turn theirs off and turn my handle on. The motor is attached to a 15mm rod that is held by a mount connected to the top of the cage. It's a bit of a strange place to mount a follow focus, but again, it allows me a lot of options. If I use a different lens, I can easily move the motor to where it needs to be. Mounting it up there also keeps it out of the way of the base plate and makes moving the rig to tripods easier. The whole camera sits on a quick release plate, so I can just take the camera out for really tight shots, like sticking it in a refrigerator or on the dashboard of a car. That quick release then connects to a rail mount that allows for all the other stuff to be connected. I've got 8-inch rails that holds the critical components, and then 6-inch extensions screwed on for the extra parts, which are removed for some configurations. In front of the camera is the Tilta carbon fiber matte box. Okay, so let's rewind to me buying things and then buying the right things. A few years ago, I was tired of using those cheap shoulder rigs that weren't sturdy, would never tighten tight enough, and just looked silly. So I purchased a very expensive universal DSLR shoulder rig from Tilta that I thought would be the last rig I'd ever need. It basically came with everything: handles, follow focus, whip, shoulder pad, monitor mount, and rails. I used the kit as is for a few months and then realized a huge flaw in its design about how the shoulder piece attached to the rig and how front heavy the unit was by design. My back would hurt after using it for just an hour or two, and the shoulder pad was a hard piece of plastic, not even a little bit comfortable. And the final straw was that the Pocket 4K wouldn't even fit into the rig if I had it in its cage. But the point of all this is that I'm using a few of the pieces from that kit, just not the actual shoulder rig cage part. The matte box is a fine matte box, it's lightweight, it's got two 4x4 filter caddies and a swing out design for lens swaps. As it turns out, the quick release for the cage raised the camera so that it fits into the matte box hole much better. In front of that is the Tilta Handles from the kit. These handles are fine, with all rosette type connectors all over it and fully adjustable in any direction. It's very comfortable. My only complaint with them is that the knob to tighten the handles to the rails hangs down a considerable amount, and it inhibits mounting the rig to a tripod without modifying. So I've mounted them upside down, taking the risk that if they're not super tight, they could cause me to drop the whole rig. I'll likely put some zip ties around them just for peace of mind in case something catastrophic happens. And then in front of that is the Tilta monitor mount. I like this mount more than any other because it mounts to the rails and not to a 1/4-20 hole. It puts my monitor far enough away so that I can actually focus on it since my eyes aren't getting any better at my age. And that brings us to the monitor. This is the 4th field monitor I've purchased throughout the years, and it's simply the best. And as it happens, the most expensive. This is the Portkeys BM5 with the Bluetooth module. I got this because it does a lot of things my other monitors didn't do. First of all, it has all the scopes that I might want and that the Pocket 4K doesn't offer, like RGB parade and vector scopes. And through the Bluetooth, I can control everything on the camera from my monitor's touchscreen. That's supremely convenient, especially the record button, since it's not always easy to reach the button on the camera when it's all kitted up. And it's also necessary. With the compact placement of everything, it's very difficult to even access the back of the screen, so having controls on an external monitor is very appreciated. It's super bright and very clear, and has both HDMI and SDI inputs, which will be important later. And now to the back of the rig. Behind the camera is the CamGear's 600M wireless video system. Previously, I was using either a long HDMI cable or one of those cheap HDMI dongle wireless thingies. Neither was a good solution, as the dongle barely worked when it did, and the cable was a trip hazard and limited my movement. I chose the CamGears over the Teradek version after watching lots of reviews and comparisons, and found that there was really no difference in performance, but a pretty big difference in price at the time. The CamGears offers transmission with latency so low that a focus puller would have no problem keeping up with my movement. And I've had very few issues with transmitting through walls or over distances with obstructions. Wireless video might seem like an expensive add-on, but if you're like me, I don't want a director over my shoulder trying to look at the same monitor I'm looking at. Plus, if you have extra people like script supervisor or producers on set, they really appreciate having a view of what the camera sees and a comfortable place to see it during production. The transmitter is attached to the back of a V-mount battery plate with some 3M dual lock tape. This is much better than Velcro and won't wear out. Just below that is the BlackMagic video conversion box. I needed this because I have 2 video inputs to deliver to. Unfortunately, the Pocket 4K only has HDMI output. I'd love to see an updated version of the camera next year with SDI out, but for now, I need to feed a field monitor and a video transmitter with signal. I chose to go HDMI to SDI because SDI cables are easier to route and connect more securely. The box is dual lock taped to the back of the V-mount battery plate. And that brings us to the back of the build, the V-mount battery plate. This one is made by Camvate and can be mounted upright like I have it here, or flat with the battery on top. Upright offers me more options for mounting other things, so that's how I have it. The things I like about this plate is that it has a D-tap out and a 5V USB out. This was critically important because the video converter box needs USB power, and that saves me from having to figure out another power source like a power bank or battery that would just add weight and complexity. It also has an on-off switch to kill power to everything all at once, which can help to save critical battery power on set during downtimes. On the side of the battery plate, I've dual locked a D-tap distribution block. With 1 in to 4 out, this means I can power the camera, the monitor, the wireless video transmitter, and the wireless focus motor all from the V-mount battery. Very convenient on set because I only have to worry about a single battery and can change it out very quickly if needed. From my experience, a 190 watt-hour battery will last me about 7 to 8 hours of powering everything. And then finally, under the whole thing, I've got a Manfrotto mounting plate and a shoulder pad with a Manfrotto mount attached to it. So in about 20 seconds, I can release the shoulder pad and pop the whole rig onto a tripod. But the main reason I spent so much time minimizing and perfecting this rig is to be able to mount it to a gimbal in a reasonably short amount of time. Previously, I used the Shiyun Crane V2, and it took some modding for the Pocket 4K to even fit and balance on it, and I had to completely remove the camera all the way out of the cage to make it work. That was a process that took over 20 minutes, and then building it back up took at least that long. There was no way for a director to see the footage during the shot, and while I had the follow focus with the Nucleus Nano, I couldn't really see what I was doing anyway, so gimbal shots were unreliable at best. Now I've upgraded the gimbal to the Shiyun Crane 3S, which has more than enough capacity to hold a large rig. So all I need to do is remove the monitor mount, the handles and the matte box, and the rod extensions, and the whole rig mounts right onto the gimbal. There's 1/4 mounting holes on each side of the gimbal handle. On one side, I attach the focus puck, and on the other, the monitor. If all we need is a quick gimbal shot, I can be ready in about 5 minutes, and putting it back together takes about the same 5 minutes, ready for shoulder shots again. If a lot of gimbal and tracking shots are called for, I can replace the tripod grip at the base of the gimbal with a hollow handle, and then drop that onto my Steadicam rig, so I can work without fatigue for much longer times. And that's it. That's my ultimate Pocket 4K rig build. The whole point of this is to be a professional on set and create a kit that is ready to shoot just about any shot in the least amount of time possible. The rig isn't cheap, but it's built to last. The actual cost of all this isn't really important here. You can certainly make films with the Pocket 4K held in your hands. None of this is essential to making a better movie, but this was created to make it a better experience for me when on set filming that movie. And it's for the other people on set to make their experience of working with me better. Producers and directors don't care how much you spend on your gear, but they'll remember that you were always ready to go with the next shot. They'll remember that they didn't need to rearrange the production schedule because a certain shot would take too long to set up. And they'll remember that you were prepared and made their jobs on set easier. The people you impress on set are the people who will hire you again and again. So is this the ultimate rig for you? Probably not. But maybe I've given you some ideas that could make your experience on set better and your builds and breakdowns faster or easier. It's all about being comfortable with your gear and knowing what it can do and what it can't, and then figuring out how to make something work that it wasn't specifically designed to do. If you have any questions at all about any of the gear or setup I talked about here, I'd be happy to answer. Thanks for watching.